Welcome to the Cody and Jarrod Talks podcast. I'm Cody. That's Jarrod.
I'm Jarrod.
Uh,
Hello.
if you're new, welcome. If you're returning, thank you for coming back. If you guys enjoy content like this, please like and subscribe and stick around for as long as you can tolerate two friends talking about the wildest election that I can remember. We expected these results to come out days, maybe even a week later. The House is going to come out later. The Senate is going to come out later. The Republicans are going to control the Senate. It's looking like the Republicans control the House. The Republicans took 27 gubernatorial seats to 23 on the Democrat side. And as we all know at this point, as of 4:24 Eastern Time at Howard University, Vice President Kamala Harris has conceded the election to Donald John Trump. He was the 45th president, and he will be returning to serve a second term as the 47th president.
Yeah. The Trump campaign pretty much started in 2016 and kind of hasn't stopped. I think we saw record early vote turnout in this election, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, 2020 as well. So just both record breaking.
Not only did we see record turnout, what we actually saw was an inverse of past trends, where the early vote was blue. We're seeing a heavy shift from that, and I think that was a great campaign shift by the Trump team, where instead of saying don't trust it early, you have to go on election day, they said vote early, vote when you can, get out there and vote. Yep. And I think that was a great pivot, saying that, hey, until they give us evidence of an unfair election, not that I think that the 2020 election was unfair or rigged, but until they give us evidence of an unfair election, like, let's keep it rolling.
Yep.
Let's keep it rolling.
These are the rules, and if they're playing by them, we're foolish not to.
Yeah, and I know last night you were following along as the states started getting called. Something that immediately, and I mean immediately, stood out to me. So I was flopping around from the different news agencies on their streams, and then independent creators as they were reacting to the state's ballot drops coming in, and North Carolina gets called. I think it was around 10:30, 11 o'clock Eastern time. It was early. Yeah, it was early. The county that I live in actually hadn't reported a single vote when North Carolina got called.
Wow.
Yeah. Which the county that I live in ended up going blue. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, in the end, it doesn't matter. Like, it's a winner-take-all state. So, what I noticed immediately when North Carolina got called is that these creators, who were members of, I don't want to call it propaganda, but they were on the DNC payroll, right? Which the RNC does the same thing, but they were on the DNC payroll. They started immediately linking pages for LGBTQIA++, links for the suicide hotline and mental health services.
I've seen those. Yeah, I've dealt with mental health issues in the past. I luckily got over them thanks to having the correct resources available to me. And I can see how, given the media rhetoric around Donald Trump, if you're belonging to the LGBTQ community plus IA plus community, I can see how you may be fearful. But I gotta say, we all have the same rights, and Civil Rights Act 1964. It's like if you're oppressed, it's illegal.
Yeah, and I think something that's been reiterated all day is completely false information. That number one, I genuinely think there is a large portion of Americans who think that Trump is now the president. Like today. As of now, with Vice President Harris saying that she is conceding the race, I think there's a large portion of Americans who are so uninformed that they think that Trump is the president right now.
I saw a Google search term result graph, and it showed a spike in people searching the terms "who is running for U.S. president," and it was like yesterday.
Yeah, there was another spike in how do you vote. There was a spike in can you vote from PS5, and there was a spike of what is voting.
Yeah, the uninformed voter really. Oh man, if only we could inform uninformed people, right? How do you make the horse drink the water once they've been led to the wealth of information that is the internet? We have everything available to us. It's all out there. Well, not all of it, but.
And then around 1 a.m. Eastern time, a surrogate from the Harris campaign came on and actually tried to switch blame onto Tim Walz to say that Tim Walz was the reason that the blue wall hadn't stayed up in the north. I don't know the logic behind that. I'm sure they have internal numbers. From all the polling numbers that we were seeing on exit polls, it was looking good for Trump from about 9:30 p.m. Eastern all the way until Pennsylvania was called. I think that was around 4:30 in the morning Eastern Standard.
Yeah, around then. I think Fox had it earlier, but they had to.
Fox was the first to call it. Yeah.
Everyone had to wait and see.
Yeah, and Fox was definitely going to call it first if it was going to be a Trump win. I think you're with me in this that I did foresee a Trump victory. I don't know if I foresaw it to be what's it going to end up being 312 226. I don't know if I foresaw it being that much. I
didn't bet money on this. A lot of my friends bet money and made money on this, but I think it was in the court of public opinion, it was too close to call going into the election.
Yeah.
But I mean, the numbers tell.
I think they were showing Vice President Harris with about a 1% margin for lead, and then as the night progressed, we saw the New York Times meter just slowly go to the right and never come back up.
But to be fair, since when do we trust polls? I mean, that's why
never.
That's why the Trump campaign's message of get out and vote early, I think, ultimately sealed the deal for them, because you saw it in 2022. It was projected to be a big red wave. And I think that ultimately hurt the voter base because people stayed home and they said, well, polls often have the opposite effect. And so if you were to listen to the polls and the betting markets and everything, Trump's going to win. Okay. Let's make sure if you're a Trump voter, you don't want to just listen to the polls and then stay home.
So
I think
currently,
the early messaging really sealed it for him.
Currently, what it's looking like is that Trump has the popular. He definitely has the Electoral College, but it's looking like he has the popular vote as well. What is confusing about this is that it's estimated that about 12 to 13 million less Democrats voted this year than voted in 2020, but we saw record turnout everywhere, mainly in rural areas. We actually saw a depression in urban environment, and we saw an increase in suburban and in rural.
Interesting.
I don't know why that is, other than I think it happened again. I think what happened in 2016 just repeated itself, where the Democratic Party assumed that having a female candidate was enough against a man like Donald Trump. And so they just didn't get out and vote, right? I'm not going to say that the 81 million votes that President Biden got are illegitimate, right? That's not what I'm here to do, right? I believe in true and fair elections. I know that Donald Trump lost in 2020. I know that he won in 2016. I know that he won in 2024, right? I'm not saying that it was illegitimate. I'm saying there were 81 million people who voted for Joseph Biden in 2020. And currently, as of 8 o'clock on the 6th of November, Vice President Harris has 67,580,000 votes.
Yeah, so about 14 million shy.
That is a crazy drop. Now, keep in mind, this is with California still only reporting 55% of the vote. That number will go up, but with the ratio we're currently seeing, Donald Trump's will also go up. Trump is going to carry the popular vote. So we're not going to hear the land doesn't vote argument for the next 4 years. I think that the Electoral College is necessary, even in elections that aren't like this. I am a very, very much in favor of the Electoral College. What I'm not in favor of is that D.C. has 3 electoral votes. I think if D.C. is going to have 3 electoral votes, you take Alexandria, Virginia, and you add them into the D.C. Metro.
Yeah. The 10 richest counties in the country?
So 15 cities. There's 15 cities that decide whether or not it's going to be a Democrat or Republican.
Oh, right. Yeah. Because it's blue cities and red states, essentially.
Land is red, cities are blue.
Because so many people live in the blue.
I would like to, real quick, shout out someone in the YouTube space that I think actually had a pivotal influence in the 30 and under demographic, specifically in the no college, some college, or associate's or bachelor's degree demographic in all races, in all states. I would also like to go out on a limb and say that the reason Pennsylvania flipped is because of this group, and that would be Turning Point USA, headed by Charlie Kirk. They've been putting in work for 4 years now, going to college campuses and just not holding debates as much as people like to say that they went and held debates, but sitting there and having conversations like Jarrod and I are sitting here having about politics and being well informed and not showing up with just binders of gotcha stuff, just trying to actually sit down and talk to people and form a genuine human connection and go, look, and from Charlie's perspective, look, I am a Trump supporter. I'm a man of God. I have my beliefs that are centered around my morals, and a lot of my morals are because of my faith and my religion. But my religion and my morals are not my political views. I understand what is better for the country.
Right.
And being able to get out there and talk to these college students and go, hey, this is what I believe. This is what we've seen under Trump. This is what we've seen under Biden. This is what we've seen Harris do. This is what we've seen Trump do. Which one do you think is better? Did you see the video of... Actually, I think you sent it to me. Putin? You want to talk about that? Talking about Trump?
Oh, which one? About how he said he thinks Trump getting in office will lead to an end of the conflict or something?
Yeah. And then did you see the stock market today?
I heard Dow went up like 800 points as soon as the election was called.
And pretty much everything went up about 3%.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
As soon as the election was called. So
probably has something to do with consumer confidence and
I'm sure there's a lot of metrics we could point to.
Formulas.
I think if you're Hamas and if you are troops on the ground in Ukraine, whether or not you're Russian or Ukrainian, I think you're sweating in your boots a little bit right now, trying to figure out how you're going to keep this war going.
Yeah. One of the biggest, I think, landmark quotes that Trump had, and no one talks about, is he was on the campaign trail, but it was a couple of years ago, and he was talking about someone asking him who he wanted to win and what his plan was to stop the conflict. And when he said, "Well, I would make sure that the conflict ends as swiftly as possible," and I guess the interviewer tried to get a gotcha quote and tried to make it sound like he was somehow in support of Putin because he's somehow going to cave to Putin's desires for land or whatever. And he goes, "I don't want either side to win. I just want people to stop dying. Can we have an end to the mass casualties? Is that too much to ask? Or do we have to keep propping up another nation and ultimately fueling both sides when you look at the energy policy, domestic and foreign policy of our current administration for now?"
And that is taken as a far-right extremist view.
Well,
end the war is taken as a political extremist view. How crazy is that?
It shouldn't be, because when you talk about it from an objective American sense, right? We are sending American tax dollars to foreign nations, and it's actually beneficial to us in the form of ballistics data. We don't have to spend American law, and I'm talking from a very non-human,
informational. Early Ukrainian or Russo-Ukrainian conflict was a phenomenal decision to get involved with by the United States on terms of weapon development. That was phenomenal. We're going to invest by giving our old, outdated equipment that's about to expire. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but rockets expire. So you either send them back to Raytheon or Lockheed Martin or Boeing to get them serviced, or Texas Instruments, and that costs as much as a new rocket, or you sell that rocket at a discounted rate somewhere where you know it's going to be used, right, by a fairly friendly force.
Militant force, yeah.
And you get the telemetry data on it, and that is a genius move. I mean, even with the Patriot system, we sent a Patriot system over there. We gave the Patriot system an update saying, hey, you can target aircraft now. And we just wanted to see if it would work, and it did. Like, that is great idea.
From a military standpoint, from a logistical standpoint, because as a result of us emptying, and this is where I want to kind of play to both sides here and give credit, we're not sending truckloads of cash to Ukraine.
No.
We're sending not only truckloads of cash. We are sending cash, but majority of what we're sending in foreign aid is armaments. So it's our old stockpiles of Vietnam era rifles,
Gulf War era, and as a result of that, we've developed new weapons. I don't know how. I mean, this is all public information, but I'm pretty sure Sig Sauer, the arms manufacturer, won the contracts for the individual squad armament weapons that will go into the future warfighter programs. A replacement for the M4, a replacement for the M249 SAW, and I believe a replacement for the help me out here, the pistol
Bravo.
Yeah, so
and the pistol.
They got the pistol, the rifleman weapon, the squad automatic weapon, and then the heavy weapons squad weapon. So that's another topic of SIG getting awarded those 4 things at once when there were definitely better options.
That's another topic, but objectively,
hey, but that optic that they made is pretty cool.
We got shiny new toys.
Yeah,
we're supplying an ally overseas with shiny.
If you
want
to call them that,
sure. On paper,
yeah.
This is the
They're
story.
not Russia,
but at the same time, going on a peace through strength, speak softly, carry a big stick doctrine.
Yep.
It would be best to be the biggest kid on the block and have the biggest rifles in town and not use them. The threat of having them as a equal and opposite adversarial force against a to-be enemy ideally is enough to keep them at bay, and it's at some point it's mutually assured destruction without nukes, because the amount of life cost to gain whatever is being fought for in conquest, which is how all land has been taken ever, ends up not being worth it. Because if you have to actually dig in and fight trench warfare with a force that has equal armaments opposing you, no one's ideally, unless it's a crazy person like Putin, I guess. But that's why I'm for arming them. I'm not for sending boatloads of cash that we don't know where it's going or what it's being spent on. Ideally, there should be some accountability there, but we can't do both things at once and say that we're still trying to uphold our moral standing in the world when, year 2, give it up for year 2 of the war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Let's send just enough to keep the odds even. It's like either help or get out.
Yeah, and I think that war is going to fairly rapidly come to a close. I don't know if Ukraine's going to keep the Donbass, but that war is going to quickly come to a close when President Trump comes back in and goes, all right, you have X amount of days before we stop your funding.
I'm not an expert in that conflict at all, but the Democrat in me says, why not just have the people of the territories in question vote? And if they vote they want to go with Russia, so be it. Soviet. If they vote they want to stay, well then it's Ukraine.
That's it with Crimea.
Right. Well, when did that happen?
2014.
2014. Didn't Ukraine have a election a revolution and election sometime around there? And weren't we sort of somewhat involved in that with the Obama administration? I'm just
There's
saying.
a Netflix documentary about it.
It
I think
seems
it's called
like
The Winter War.
It seems like we've had our fingers over there, and the fact that things have gotten
I mean,
worse,
we have our fingers everywhere, man. It's like,
sure,
we are the bully on the playground. What do you mean?
The fact that things have gotten worse seems to tell the story that war is beneficial to our manufacturing base instead of our manufacturing base being beneficial and conducive to war.
A very specific center of our manufacturing base.
Right. We were in World War II. We were neutral. We maintained neutrality for 2 years, and Japan, one of their generals, I forget his name, is quoted as referring to us as a sleeping giant, because at any point a switch could be flipped, and our manufacturing base, our raw resources, our logistical capacity, everything could be geared towards war. Overnight, and that power is meant to be a last resort, and it's not meant to be oh wow, this is really convenient, we can do this all the time and just go find conflicts to activate our base for. And it seems like we kind of got into it and never stopped, and it's supposed to be the last resort, the kind of, hey, don't make me pull this out, not nukes, but hey, don't make the F-16s show up. If you see a carrier off your coast, you kind of messed up. But instead, it's sort of become our focal point, and the structure has shifted so that it supports it entirely as the star on top of the tree rather than just another ornament.
Yeah, and I'm looking at stocks right now.
Oh, yes.
It's looking like it wasn't a good day for Boeing, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Texas Instruments.
What do they make?
They're pretty good at fighting wars in other countries that you can't pronounce.
Right. They design things that happen to be implement technologies like rocket propulsion, things like that, explosions, detonators, things that don't really have a use civilian side. You don't see rockets, jets being deployed on civilian soil.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see a Javelin missile sitting on my shelf. That's
right. Well, not anymore. So everything they make,
I got one of them,
is geared towards destruction.
Yeah.
Which, in time of war, is very good.
Yeah.
But we haven't been at war. War is an act of Congress. Congress declares war, not the president. We haven't been at war since World War II. I don't think Congress declared it for Vietnam.
Okay, but that's a different conversation, because the rules.
We've been in armed conflict.
The rules have changed, right? So Congress has to deploy troops. So that's where we consider, and an act of Congress is what instills certain military awards and things like that. So when a new campaign ribbon comes up, that is the Congress declaring war, right? So we've gone to war in Iraq, we've gone to war in Syria, we've gone to war in Afghanistan, we've gone to war in Kuwait. We have soldiers in Jordan, we have soldiers in other places that I'm not sure if I'm supposed to talk about.
We don't have anyone deployed overseas.
Yeah, I mean, and that was obviously another flub, and I'm going to try to steer us back towards last night, but that gives us into another flub that the Harris campaign made, where in the debate with President Trump, she said that there are 0 troops in a war zone right now, and that's just factually incorrect. I'm sure at this point everybody's seen the video of the guys sitting at a chew watching the debate going, well, where the fuck am I then?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and excuse my language, I probably should have warned you guys before I said that, but those are the words coming out of these guys. I mean, how small do you think that makes you feel, right? You're away from your family. You're probably there for 9 to 12 months on a rotation, doing whatever, protecting, probably just protecting American assets out there. But you're out there away from your family sacrificing, and you hear the potential next president, the current vice president, sitting there saying, you're not real. Like, congratulations, you lost the military. That's a pretty big demographic.
For political points, mind you, because it's not. It's frowned upon, then and they know it. The general populace doesn't want to be involved in war. It's why they
Yeah.
had to lie. They had to lie wholeheartedly, make something up that didn't occur to get us into Vietnam.
Yeah.
There was no popular support
You're referencing the
for
Gulf of
that
Tonkin,
war.
right?
Yes, the
Yeah.
Gulf of Tonkin incident, the not the first attack that was legitimate, but the second attack that ultimately ended up spawning the Gulf of Tonkin resolution written by LBJ, came out later that it never happened.
Yeah.
And there wasn't popular support for the war. And then some generals said, we just got discovered doing covert operations off the coast of Vietnam. This isn't going to look good. They shot first. We have to strike back. And then play the video of Bush post 9/11. I hear you.
Yeah.
America hears you.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, the rest of the world's going to hear, and the people that did this are going to hear you. It's like, we get hit, we hit them back harder. And that's just about, other than their cremating people, that's just about the only justification that works when selling war to the American people. Because otherwise, it's a necessary evil to go and fight these wars. We had to go and stamp out tyranny and fascism and Nazis in World War II because that was a justified war. Everything else has been, I don't know if that's really justified. Oh, look, they did this.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it's justified now. Oh, I guess that never happened. So was it justified? Well, it sure made a hell of a lot of money, so let's not worry about that. Let's keep going.
Yeah, and another thing is, man, I don't see how Vice President Harris was even considered a viable option, right? What has she accomplished in the past 3.5 years as the VP, right? She got laughed off the campaign trail by Tulsi Gabbard, who, by the way, endorsed Trump very early. And then this year she was installed by the Democratic elites without a primary, and it was all because of a technicality involving funding. She only became the candidate 109 days ago. That is insane. A typical campaign run is 8 months, right? She was doomed to fail from the start. Yeah. And it was, hey, we're gonna do this debate. It's gonna be Joe Biden. It's gonna be Donald Trump. Yeah, it's two old white men. We're repeating this again. But you saw the actual sitting leader of the United States so incompetent in a debate that the elite forced him out of that position.
It was a coup.
And installed Kamala Harris, who then went and made a mockery of the Democratic Party. I mean, last night, I don't know if you noticed it, but where was the racism coming from in the legacy media?
It was all on the left. It was saying that
it was CNN.
If you didn't vote for Kamala, it's because you were a sexist, racist,
homophobe, transphobe.
Right. All the phobes, all the ad hominem character attacks. Not once did it occur to them that maybe it's because the candidate on the left had no real articulation of facts and points.
Yep.
Save for the other guy is Hitler. And you can't, you could run a campaign on it. They tried. I think 2020 maybe have been an anomaly with the mail-in votes and the whole COVID thing, but it ostensibly worked. It worked in 2020. Trump won in 2016.
Yeah.
The general consensus was, hey, we don't like this guy. Let's try another guy.
Which is how the process works.
Right, and someone else won. And then we had 4 years of him, and just so happened to have 4 years of the next candidate as the vice president, who then made no attempt to separate herself from the detrimental policies of the Biden administration. In fact, claimed she would have done nothing different. So that then tells you that, okay, you can expect 4
more of
years
the
of the same. So the people that didn't like what had been happening for those 4 years said, okay, and my other choice is the other guy. It's not that hard. It's not because they were sexist. It's not because they were racist. It's because there were no policies that were articulated that were a preferable alternative to what they had grown tired of with Biden and didn't like with Trump.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I just want to say, like, maybe ignoring the centrists and the independents in favor of the woke left wasn't a good idea. Maybe getting endorsements from the warlord Dick Cheney, not a good look. Maybe
The
those.
fact that was tried to be spun. Sorry to cut you off. The
No,
fact
no.
that they spun that as positive blew my mind. Like, oh yes.
And I'm
Since-
intentionally calling him a warlord because that's what he is.
Since 2004, it's been, hey, this guy's bad.
Yeah.
He's shouldn't be in charge of any semblance of our executive branch. We don't like him and his policies.
Keep him
And
as
then-
far away from DC as you can. Keep him in Montana or
then
Wyoming.
all of a
I
sudden-
can't, it's one of those states. It's
all of a sudden, it's thank God he's on our side.
yeah, and
What?
it's because of his daughter, who's, I mean, call it how it is. She's a rhino, right? Like,
Republican in name only, for those who are unfamiliar.
Liz Cheney is a rhino, and that's fine. You know, I would honestly rather have more politicians be rhinos because at least you know that they're going to be able to compromise on things, right? And the thing is, what's so crazy about that is it shouldn't be a wild belief to say I'd rather have somebody that's more moderate.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd rather have someone that
I think Liz Cheney's a decent politician. If you look at her voting history, it is not party line, and that is what it should be. You should be voting the issues. You should be representing your demographic. Your constituents should be happy with how you're voting, and then they should continue to reelect you.
right. And if
Right.
they're unhappy, you shouldn't win re-election.
And another thing, maybe these celebrity endorsements that you got, right? And I don't want to reference the Diddy list because, like, that's in court. That's a whole thing. Like, maybe not, right? Like, there's evidence. Don't want to say yes or no.
We don't want to get into defamation here. The
But-
guy is under some.
No,
some
the
fire.
guy's garbage. He's walking garbage. But
Sure.
these celebrities, I don't want to badmouth them, right? But these celebrities, maybe they're just so disconnected from reality and don't understand what it's like for the average American to be struggling to fill up their tank of gas and struggling to go afford milk and eggs and bread. Like, maybe, hear me out, they're not the ones to listen to. Maybe Taylor Swift picked the wrong guy again.
Yeah, she doesn't have a great track record, does she?
Like, it's...
Oh man, the album, the 2024 election Taylor Swift album is going to be great.
I just don't understand, because the left is going to continue to fail to reach independent voters if they don't do a quick pivot and realize, hey, what we're doing right now is we are targeting the people who are already voting for us, and we're not only taking the line from the left, we're moving it, and we're moving it to the left, and the right's staying exactly where they are. So where does the center point go? You have
Relatively to the
34% of Americans are registered Republican, 32% are registered Democrats. The rest are independent. You
Pretty big margin.
have to win the indies if you want to win the race.
Yeah.
You have to hit that center line. You can't be advocating for mutilating children.
Which, to cut you off, because I know the counterpoint. No one's advocating for that. No one does that. That never happens. Okay, so it's made up.
And in the words of one of my favorite YouTubers, Mr. Wendigoon, remember, kids, if the government says they wouldn't do something, yes, they would.
And they probably have.
And they probably have, and they'll continue to do it.
So it's not so much whether or not it's happening, it's whether or not it should be permissible by law. If you are under 18, you are designated a minor.
Leave the kids alone.
You cannot enlist in the military. You cannot get a tattoo. You cannot vote. You cannot do a whole host of things, buy a firearm. You have limited rights as a minor. Adults have different rights than minors. Minors have protections under the law. They are protected from consequences of uninformed actions. Hey, mommy, I really love Spider-Man. I want to get a Spider-Man tattoo. Okay, the odds of you not liking Spider-Man once you're an adult are probably slim to none. You're going to like Spider-Man. But just in case you end up liking Batman, let's save that decision for a more developed brain and then let them make it. If you're an adult, go for it. There should be all forms of elective surgery possible.
Absolutely. If you're an adult, do what you want.
Who am I to say what you want to do with your body?
I don't think the government should interfere with that.
The government shouldn't interfere, but there is a need to protect the children.
Absolutely.
From parents who may have a complex about them. I think there's probably statistics behind parents with mental illness suddenly discovering that their 4-year-old is trans or identifies.
I mean, I'm sure that the data is there. I don't know how quantifiable it is.
Right, and it's all just buzzwords at this point. But the underlying premise of, hey, we should have these laws in place to make sure that kids don't have the consequences of a choice made in youth affect them for the rest of their life, negatively or otherwise. It's like, make that choice when you're of age, consenting adults.
Absolutely, and that's where my stance is. It's that, hey, don't mess with the kids. Right? You're an adult, make your own decisions. I have tattoos that I've had covered up. Right? I got them when I was 18. I'm allowed to get them when I'm 18. I also suffered the consequences of getting a dumb tattoo. And then either pay thousands of dollars for laser tattoo removal or pay hundreds of dollars and cover it up with another tattoo. That's why I got some pretty black tattoos to cover up really dumb tattoos that are under it.
But when it comes to something like
a life-altering surgery, puberty blockers are not totally reversible.
Right.
That is, you're affecting bone density. You're affecting a lot of social development.
But we're getting in the weeds here. This is all to say that this is a
poor choice.
It's a poor choice to run your campaign on. But it's a luxury of a prosperous voting base to even be worrying about that.
Absolutely.
as a focal point of your campaign in the first place. I understand there's a very hot, women's rights is a very hot topic, and the debate on whether or not right to a safe abortion should be included in the fundamental human rights federally or states. That's a whole nother debate. But to zoom in on that and hold on to that as your main focal point for an entire campaign, knowing that abortion is not, when it comes to the demographics, it doesn't tend to be a men versus women thing, because a majority of conservative women don't support it.
Yeah.
So it's really a political ideology thing. And to be able to have that as your number one priority, that means that you are so well off that inflation outpacing income hasn't affected you because your income has already outpaced inflation. That means that you don't have to worry about crime because you're either in such a safe neighborhood that you don't see it, or you're just so far removed from it that it doesn't affect you. But these things affect millions of Americans, and that's what we saw in the popular vote. Was despite the 34 felony counts, despite the...
which are all in the appeal process.
Despite the sexual assault, sexual harassment, it's not. He wasn't even charged or convicted of rape or sexual assault. It was,
yes,
he defamed the person who claimed he sexually assaulted and
no,
or
we need to get this one
her.
Right.
Because
I'm nearly positive that. Can you look that up?
We're talking about the author.
I'm almost positive that he was convicted of sexual assault. If you could look that up real quick, so we don't get this one wrong.
It might have been sexual assault. I'm saying them calling him a rapist is a little inaccurate. I'm not saying sexual assault's good, but
no. And while you look this up, I'll just say
he was liable for sexual abuse and awarded the accuser reparation, basically, for him defaming her.
But is that sexual assault? Is he convicted of sexual assault?
A jury found Donald Trump liable for sexually abusing advice columnist E. Jean Carroll in 1996, awarding her $5 million in a judgment that could haunt. Verdict was split. Jurors rejected Carroll's claim that she was raped, finding Trump responsible for a lesser degree of sexual abuse. Judgment adds to Trump's legal. It doesn't. You'd think.
Okay, so sexual abuse.
Right, at the very least, which I guess was they were trying to convict him of right. But all of that to say, the women of the right
Yeah.
took all of that, no matter how you spun it, whether it was, yes, he did rape her and he should have gotten a harsher punishment, or however your view on it. They took all of that and said, yeah, this is an issue that is not as high as the economy, border security, foreign wars, diplomacy. It's like,
Yeah, I think
to be so out of touch with not only the other side, because if you can't recognize the merits of the other side's arguments, then you're really closed-minded, but to be out of touch with the voter base of your own side, to actually lose voters, to say, no, they've gone too far and they don't represent me at all. I actually think the other side, even with all of the media coverage that is majority negative, whether it's true or not, they seem to sort of cherry pick and only show you the negative around this guy.
Okay, so
people took that and said,
quick numbers here. It's looking like, and these are, there's still votes coming in. The only demographic that Vice President Harris really, really carried was black women. So black women, it's looking like she carried 93% of the black woman vote. It's looking like Native Americans went about 70% in favor of Trump. Black men went about 70, it looks like 76 in favor of Harris. White people went, men and women, I don't have a breakdown of this one yet. It's looking like about 57% in favor of Trump. And we're actually seeing that the Jewish voter base went 40% in favor of Trump, which is the highest since Reagan.
Wow. Yeah, it's
and these numbers are going to continue to change, right? It's 8:20,
yeah,
it's 8:30 on the day after the election. So these numbers are going to keep changing. But it's just interesting to me that she did not carry the same amount of the black man vote as Biden.
Yeah, to quote Biden, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or for Donald Trump, then you ain't black. That's what Biden said. And that just shows you where they're at. Right, it's a disconnect. It's because they're so rooted in ideology, identity politics, party and person over policy. And it's ironic. It is so painfully ironic to me that is the rhetoric now, that I guess America has chosen person over policy, and I guess the only thing Americans hate more than a rapist is a woman. It's like, hello, that's the point. We chose policy over person. It's because you guys ran on nothing. And watch, in a couple weeks when the dust clears, it'll be, it's because she only had 109 days. It's like, whose choice was that? You guys had... Yeah. You had...
Also, you installed someone who did so poorly in the Democratic primary in 2020 that she did not get a single delegate at the DNC. Tulsi Gabbard actually got 2, and Tulsi Gabbard's a Republican now. Well, she's independent, but she's a Republican now. And you saw, once again, Bernie Sanders be the second highest. I'm just like, maybe it was time to put Bernie Sanders up.
Switch up the game plan. Yeah,
I understand it's another old white man, but also it's against
they need to stop
Trump,
playing,
and it's obviously somebody who is favorable, right? Like, he doesn't hold that Senate position in Vermont for as long as he has without being at least a little popular. And lo and behold, he's gotten second in the primaries 3 times now. It was, or I guess 2 times, because they didn't hold one this year. He probably would have won the Democratic primary this year, but in 16 and 20, he got second place. And it's arguable with the Hillary Clinton campaign, and it's not arguable with the Biden campaign. But like, what are you guys doing?
That's what I've been saying. That I honestly think, first off, 2016 had Bernie ran instead of Hillary Clinton, Bernie easily would have pulled from Trump.
Yeah, easily.
And then RFK, not even talking about Bernie 2020 or 2024. RFK, they didn't let him run as a Democrat because they wanted Biden. Yeah. And then they forced him out, and then they forced Biden out.
Yeah. And I don't think J.D. Vance was wrong for saying that. I I think when the dust clears and we see a legitimate breakdown in demographics, right? Once every single vote has been calculated and we can actually sit down and crunch numbers.
Next year.
I mean, I give it a few weeks before Pew Research puts out their first demographics.
Probably.
But I would not be shocked at all to say that the normal gay and lesbian vote went to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
The LGBTQ movement, or LGBT movement, in its infancy, was for marriage rights and for access to the same healthcare. And that's a thing. And nobody's taking that away. I think what people are failing to realize is that Donald Trump supported gays and gay marriage before the Democratic or the Republican Party. He supported this before the parties took a stance on it in the positive. And they only did that under Obama.
Right. Yeah, that was just 2 presidencies ago.
Like, what? I genuinely do not understand. I'm sure you're seeing the same since you're in California.
Oh yeah.
But people on social media that are saying, "Oh, well, now I don't know if I'm going to be able to get married to my boyfriend or my girlfriend, respectively," right? Gay couples. It's like, hey, number one, it's codified in law.
Right.
That's not going to happen. It's already gone through a 14th Amendment trial with the Supreme Court. They ruled in favor of love. I mean, right. I'm sure you remember when that happened. All of the posts, love won, right?
It's a big thing.
I don't take the stance that a lot of guys, like I know Ben Shapiro takes the religious Jew stance, where being gay is not sinful, but the act of it is.
Right. Yeah,
so
acting on your gayness.
I don't like mixing religion with politics.
Yep.
I don't think they should mix. I'm totally in favor of gay marriage. And you know who else is in favor of gay marriage? Donald Trump.
It's the mental gymnastics required to believe, and I'm going to call it propaganda, because propaganda is when you are knowingly lied to further a political agenda.
While you're talking, I'm going to pull up some threads that I wanted to reference.
When you look at and I'm going to use big buzzwords here, but I'm try to take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. When you look at the collusion between media outlets who all started parroting the exact same verbatim responses around Donald Trump, not even talking about the threat to democracy rhetoric, because all that stuff is interesting to listen to in its entirety. But when it comes to the gays and the LGBTQ rights and everything, and not only that, but the immigrant crisis, the illegal immigrant crisis, it seems that the most vocal, outspoken Kamala supporters were in support of Kamala as a anti-Trump vote, rather. Just like in 2016, it was an anti-Hillary Clinton vote, really, that was pro-Trump. And they're anti-Trump and pro-Kamala because they're afraid, or they've been made to believe, and they're afraid of the future that could possibly entail Donald Trump deporting children of illegal migrants. And it's like, well, if you're born here, you're a citizen.
Yep.
You can't really do that. Sorry. It's like, I'm sorry you believe that.
I want to make it clear I'm pro-dreamer.
Yeah. Come here and make this place a better place, but to pay our taxes. I'm sorry you were made to believe that he was going to end gay marriage and you're going to have to,
or that birth control is going to be illegal now for some reason.
Hide out and smuggle yourself to another state to live your life. It's like, well, that's not real. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's that Project 2025. I'm getting excited here, so I'm like,
don't call it a hoax.
I'm trying real hard to not swear. But
it's hard.
2025 stuff that Donald Trump and JD Vance have both adamantly and vehemently said,
denounced.
Hey, not me. Right. This is made by a research group. Yes, the foreword of it is written by JD Vance. He has also come out and said, hey, they just asked me to write a foreword about the Republican Party. And then they took everything and took it to an extreme. Your birth control is not going to be illegal. you're not all of a sudden going to lose your right to marry as a gay person, right? Maybe children aren't going to be able to get bottom surgery and top surgery and be put on hormone blockers. Maybe.
Which I would love to hear the argument for.
The argument against?
Or the argument for? I would love to hear the argument against it becoming illegal.
Yeah.
I would love to hear the argument for, in support of, surgery for minors.
And then also, how many people were voting for Harris based off of her abortion stances? And when Trump has regularly repeated himself for the past 20 years, 30 years, that he is pro-abortion in the event of rape, incest, threat to the woman's life, and his personal belief is that it should be allowed for any reason up to 16 weeks.
Which is more than reasonable.
And he has said multiple times that he would veto and strike down and do whatever he could to not pass a federal abortion ban.
Right. Which, if you look at freedoms, they are being upheld. Because what you don't want...
The Democrats had 8 years under Obama to codify Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, they also had 2 years under Biden with a stacked House, Senate, and White House. What were they doing?
They also had time under Clinton.
What were they doing?
They were choosing to continue to run on the I'm going to protect your right to choose.
Rather than do something about
rather
it.
Than
so
codify it and make it a law where it can't be touched. Right? Like that is... It's manipulation. It is...
It's neglect.
It is neglectful to a population. It is something that is so clearly propagandizing your populace.
Yep. But if you're part of that populace, you're too zoomed in to go, but, no matter who I vote for, it seems my rights aren't being thought of, or it seems that they're an afterthought, or they're being used as a political football to say, oh yeah, we're going to fight for them, and then not fight for them so that they can continue to be needed to be fought for.
In North Carolina, we had a proposition that we voted on, which thankfully passed overwhelmingly, to make it illegal for non-citizens to vote in our election.
Concept. Wait. What? Why would you want... Wait. But you're stopping...
Is that not already illegal?
That's... Yeah, for one. For two...
Well, it's like California making stealing illegal.
No. So actually, what happened in California is very interesting. So, in 2014, Prop 47 passed. And what Prop 47 did... Mind you, Kamala Harris was one of the proponents and initial supporters as Attorney General of California.
So she was the AG at the time, so she wasn't a senator yet?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't think she was. Let me get the time frame right. But so Prop 47, what Prop 47 did was it changed the distinction under the law of prosecutorial powers when it came to theft. This is one of the things it did. I don't know the whole bill, but it turned theft of $950 and less into a misdemeanor rather than a felony. So if you're a prosecutor and you're trying to maximize the amount of felony prosecutions and you know your job is to put people in jail for crimes they did, but your job is to maximize the amount of people and justice served. It automatically takes an incentive off of prosecuting theft under 950 because no matter what you do, it's a misdemeanor. So,
it's just going to be a fine, right?
Right.
California misdemeanors are fines?
Yeah, I think it ends up not even being worth it to
even try to prosecute.
It ends up being a catch and release. Oh, and the no cash bail. So you can arrest someone, charge them with misdemeanor theft, hold them until, I don't know, the next day or whenever their court date is, and then they get assigned community service or a fine or something, and they're let right back out to go steal $949.99 worth of goods and then sell on the black market. And then they wonder why the small businesses and even corporations, chain businesses, Walgreens, Walmart, Target, they all wonder why they're all going out of business in the cities that the cops don't arrest these people because it's not worth it to send them to the district attorneys who are not going to put them in jail for misdemeanors. So it's like, the cops defund the police, and that all leads to...
Hey, we tried that, and we saw what happened.
So now it's handcuff the district attorneys and prosecutors by making crime less of a crime.
And
It's
all that does is it enables an AG to be weak. It enables a DA to be weak, right? You're not going to be able to be tough on crime, and a DA should be tough on crime, right? I mean,
because there's no consequence. There's no real consequences for crime
yeah.
up to a certain amount. And if it's up to a certain amount, why would I steal $951 and get a felony if I could steal $940? I'm an honest guy. There's been times I've been in line at like Walmart for bread or something, and I'm like, I should just fucking, excuse my language, I should just walk out and steal this because there's no consequences. They're employing robots to take the place of real humans, and the cops aren't going to do anything about it. What's the point? Who cares? If everyone's stealing, why should I pay? It incentivizes crime and it disincentivizes honesty. So what California voted for, I believe Prop 36.
Yeah, it was 36.
Overwhelming support, 71 to 29%, I believe, voted on Prop 36, which undid Prop 47 and now made it. I can get the exact terminology, but basically we said, "Gee, whoops, that was a mistake," and Kamala Harris was responsible for that.
So talking about crime, this is a good segue into a thread that I have pulled up. I have like 3 screenshots of the same exact thing, which makes me think it's something that was pushed out by the DNC. But it's a highly qualified woman lost to a convicted felon. Let that sink in. What are her qualifications? She has a career of convenience.
Right.
She has a career of coincidence, right? She wasn't elected to the Senate.
She failed upward.
Yeah. So she is the DA of San Francisco, right? And that's fine. She does okay. She also disproportionately charges black people.
I wonder why
and gives
the
harsher
black male
sentence to black men.
I wonder why the black males didn't turn out for her.
It's weird.
But she's
it's
so
weird
highly
seeing
qualified.
the ACAB crowd voting for a prosecutor and the Back the Blue crowd voting for a felon. I know that's a meme that was rolling around. That I mean, I got a good giggle out of that one. But it's just what are her qualifications? That she was a prosecutor that unfairly prosecuted, and then she was an AG in a state where, I mean, California's a joke, really, when it comes to handling a lot of crime. I mean, look at the cesspool that is Los Angeles. Look at the cesspool that is San Francisco County at this point. Her old DA-ship, right? I'm not sure if that's actually what it's called, but she was the DA of San Francisco County. And there's an app to track human feces on the street.
That's normal.
Yeah, you can't walk around without. And Gavin Newsom proved that San Francisco can get cleaned up.
Could be cleaned up as long as
in a day.
Foreign dictator is
if
visiting.
A foreign dictator, a brutal foreign dictator is coming to visit, we can absolutely clean it in less than a day. Keep it clean.
Maybe clean it up for your citizens.
Maybe you wouldn't have this exodus of people leaving California and going to other states.
Why are all of our top tax hogs leaving? Maybe it's because they have to get an app to track the poop.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to say on Kamala Harris is how she's far beyond qualified. This kind of is eerily similar to before the presidential debate between President Trump and President Biden, where they were saying that this is the best Joe Biden has ever been. He's 40 years in. That means he's got 40 years of experience. He's not too old. Mind you, after they forced Biden out, that's when you first started seeing the dementia Don, diaper Don comments like, oh, Trump's too old. Really? Yeah. Now that you guys forced out the next oldest guy, our guy's too old?
I mean, to be fair, Trump is the oldest ever elected president at 78 years old. He will be 82 when he finishes his term.
Hey, man, we'll see how it goes. Here's the fun part. If he doesn't do what we want, if he starts becoming a dictator and
guess
and
what?
doing
He's
all the
gone
bad
in 4
stuff,
years.
Right. He's gone in 4 years, but more importantly, it's on record.
And his VP choice, phenomenal.
Right. So even if he's not capable, there's still someone competent at the helm. But back to the qualification thing. The campaign, Kamala's campaign and a good chunk of her voters confused appointments and positions she's held with accomplishments.
Yes.
Because, yes, it does take some form of accomplishment to get elected to presidency, but everything else she's been at has been an appointment or a position that she got into because of who she knew.
Yeah. Even the AG, she would not have won the AG position without friends.
So when you look at what she's actually done, it doesn't it's not to her credit.
No.
But they use all of her positions as somehow, look at what she's done. And it's like, okay, but what did she do when she was AG, senator, district attorney? It's like, all the
Well, when
stuff
she was
you
a
say,
senator, I can tell you what she did. She voted party line on every single issue that came across her desk and didn't have a single original thought for herself.
But even going back to the California days, it's like, if it was a white man, they'd be calling him a racist.
Yeah.
Right? So could it be possible that people strayed from voting identity over policy, and now the spin is somehow
I just think
mirror?
it was a terrible choice by the DNC to install her as the front runner, and I understand why they did it. It was because of funding. They would have had to refund all of the campaign donors that Joe Biden had. There was no.
They shouldn't have ran Joe.
They shouldn't have. They shouldn't have.
Maybe Bernie, maybe someone else. But
Yeah.
to look at, maybe they did. I don't know what their internal polling looked like when they snuffed Biden out. But I guess after the debate, all that far beyond cogent and he's the best he's ever been turned around real fast into something's wrong with the president, and we need to have a serious talk, and he should be in a home. And it's like, yeah, welcome to reality. Could it be maybe you guys are disconnected?
Yeah. Something really
There's
funny.
no one better. I refuse to believe
There's so many people better, but they all work for Fortune
no
500
one
companies, and they're not going to step down from their cushy multi-million-dollar positions to take a position where you have to sacrifice like Trump did.
Yeah, whoops.
Did I say the quiet part out loud?
No, but he's enriching himself by losing net worth.
Yeah, by losing billions of dollars and sacrificing his sanity for the country that he genuinely loves. I mean, there's an interview of him from the 90s where they asked, would he run for president? He goes, I don't think I would want to.
I hope I don't have to.
I hope I don't have to, but if there's a situation that arises, then I will. Right? And that situation has now arisen 3 times, and I think that J.D. Vance was a stellar choice for the Republicans. I think that J.D. Vance will make a run in 2028. I think it'll be against Gavin Newsom. Way too early to call. I don't think Gavin Newsom's going to win, and I think that
you heard it here first.
I think that J.D. Vance will carry with a much closer margin. I'm going to call it now at 277 for J.D. Vance in 2028. He's going to carry Pennsylvania again.
We'll revisit in 4 years.
We'll revisit this in 4 years. It'll get clipped out of context, and I'll look like a dummy. But
no, you're right. He was a good choice, and he continues to keep getting better. I was unsure early on when he had the first couple like public speaking events, and he was sort of awkward, but after hearing him on podcasts, one-on-one rallies since then, acceptance speech and everything, it's like,
and that's another
he
thing, man.
seems like a level-headed guy who is common sense and cares about all Americans, and he can't be racist or sexist.
Every single interview that Vice President Harris gave, she gave political talking points the entire time. Yeah, every single time. And when President Trump and Vice President-elect Vance went on to a podcast, they just sat down and had real conversations. I mean, you saw President Trump sitting down with Theo Vaughn, a very funny comedian, talking about cocaine addiction and talking about how his family trauma and why he doesn't drink and why he doesn't do drugs because of his brother Fred. And we saw Trump in a different light than we had ever seen him before, and it made him more personable, and it resonated with the undecided. It registered with the independents that, oh, hang on, this isn't big bad monster. This is a guy that is genuinely curious. I mean, you see the compassion in his eyes when he's talking to Theo Vaughn, when he's saying, I hear it's really hard to get off alcohol. Have you ever suffered with it? And Theo goes, I'm actually in recovery right now. And then he sits there and he genuinely discusses alcoholism recovery with Theo and genuinely wants to know, like, what was your experience with these drugs? Because this is coming from a man that's never done them.
That's never done them. So, yeah, and it shows his curiosity and his own empathy. Because
he's a lifelong learner.
He's trying to understand a different perspective, one that plagues millions of Americans are struggling with addiction, and for him to the Theo Vaughn alone was wild.
And then you also see him attracting the young vote on places like the Nelk Boys podcast. You see it on Aiden Ross's stream. You see him going on Sean Ryan. You see Vice President-elect Vance going on Sean Ryan as well. And then you see the Flagrant podcast. Oh, okay, the Flagrant Boys. I have not seen a better group of men discuss very, very hard topics to discuss than the Flagrant guys.
That was what gave me hope, because that was before the Rogan thing, and it was before a lot of the talks about it came out. But the fact that during the Flagrant podcast, the weave was coined, and he explained it, because that's something that a lot of Trump detractors point to. It's like, oh, he always rambles and goes off on tangents.
He's been doing that since the 90s.
Dude, this guy has been in front of a camera for most of his life, and the fact that essence of his personality was delved into, and not only did they, get him to talk about it, but they got him to go back to the original question and then say, I don't like talking about that. That's human. If someone, if you're getting interviewed and you're running for office, you kind of have to give an answer, but to say, that's a tough one.
Yeah, and that's a touchy subject. I know you talked about it barely, probably like 15 minutes ago, but I want to talk about illegal immigration, because that resonates with everybody at this point.
Everybody,
right? Like there's a very loud minority on the left that doesn't care about open borders, doesn't care at all. This is another thread post from K.E. Birch. It says, "The first text from my daughter this morning was to say that she renewed her passport. If you haven't done it too, now's the time. She is advocating for illegal immigration to other countries." You don't qualify to move to other countries. Other countries have stricter immigration than us. You can't go to Canada. Right. You can't move to Europe. The wait time is going to be too long, and you're going to need too much money. You can't afford it.
And if you can, good for you.
Yeah, and that's
a privilege.
Yeah.
But for everyone else...
But also, why do we not have the same restrictions on immigration? Because I can't go and move to Canada. You can't go and just move to Canada.
Can just walk across the southern border and be given resources.
And be helped to purchase a house.
And this isn't rhetoric. This isn't like...
No, this is what's happening.
Hyperbole. This is accurately what is happening at the border. Our Border Patrol agents are being instructed to not expel or prohibit people from entering.
Also, if you're unaware, sheriff's deputies are not allowed to engage with illegal crossings. They have to call CBP, Customs and Border Patrol.
So, right now it seems, and this was, I believe, Destiny.
I still need to watch that guy, man.
That was a really good... So, Destiny did some 1v30 debate thing on YouTube, and he brought up a good point about immigration in it. And we don't have an illegal immigration problem. We have an asylum problem. A problem with our current asylum process. And it's basically, right now, the situation is there are no restrictions to what you can claim for asylum. Asylum being you're in a country that is oppressive of your fundamental human rights of self-expression, of religion, identity, sexual preference, whatever it is. You're being oppressed in your home country because you're living the way you want, and you want to come to a place where that doesn't happen. Cool, we love that. Come here, we want that. Claim asylum. But right now, anyone can say that, and the vetting process is such that it takes years, several, to get a court date appointed.
Please come to this court date in 5 to 7 years.
Please return in 5 to 7 years. Meanwhile, because we don't have any legal grounds to return you to Mexico or whatever country you came from, which probably wouldn't be the best idea, but we had a Remain in Mexico policy which said that, hey, you've come all this way, Mexico is agreeing to cooperate with us, they will house you on their side of the border where they have more resources to handle you, and sort of spread out the load instead of housing millions of people all of a sudden on our taxpayers' dime. Not only are they housing, but they're giving cell phones. There's an app to download that tells you essentially which is all good and dandy. I'm glad that infrastructure exists. Let's give it to like homeless Americans.
Hey, there's a thought.
Like, I'm not anti-immigration. I'm
just American.
anti-illegal.
I'm America first.
America first, and that shouldn't be controversial. To say that I walk past homeless people who are having a full-on mental breakdown, rolling around on the sidewalk as if they're on fire in broad daylight on a weekday, and I just have to look past it and say, "Oh, gee, I hope they get the resources." It's like, no. Why do we have an unlimited blank checkbook for anyone who wants to come here? But once you're here, good luck. Bootstraps, pull them up.
Yep.
It's like, what kind of message are we sending that if you're born here and you go through all the legal means and methods of, becoming an upstanding, participating citizen, and you pay your taxes and you don't steal $949 worth of goods from Walgreens, and you do everything right and you are barely scraping by, and the priority of one of the front runners is not to address the 20 million people who are here living under the system, benefiting from government programs and not contributing in all the ways that you are. That's just fundamentally wrong and unfair. And to make it a political argument and say that you're racist, no, I'm pro you and me.
Yeah, in the past 48 hours, the only people that have shown themselves to be racist are news anchors on the left, criticizing black men for being black and not voting for the black candidate, and criticizing
how much longer that's going to work,
and criticizing Hispanic and Latino voters for voting for Trump. And it literally on CNN. Do you guys not realize who the enemy to you is? What a statement to make.
Yeah, what a statement to make about not only the president-elect, but
are you actually sitting there saying that Hispanic men aren't smart enough to realize who they should be voting for? And
that's exactly.
And are you actually sitting there telling somebody who to vote for? Because that seems to be manipulation of a voting body, which, if you didn't know, is a felony.
Do you have the numbers on Miami-Dade handy?
I mean, I can get them quick. So I know Trump carried Miami-Dade, which is, the most conservative city in America. But let me pull up the Miami-Dade numbers.
But to illustrate my point, that message didn't get across. Trump won Florida by a wider margin than Kamala won New York.
Trump carried Florida by 13.3%.
Yeah. I forget what New York's was, but it was not...
not that.
So, what appears to be...
he carried Miami-Dade by, looks like 20 points.
Okay. So, basically, either they're all so... and I'm racist to be assuming that everyone in Miami-Dade is Latino, but it's a majority of the population.
It's heavily Latino.
Right. So, to look at one spot as a general idea of the demographic, either they're all so uninformed that they voted for their enemy, or maybe the policies of the Trump campaign appeal to them. Let's take a look at why that might be.
There's a thought.
Trump promises to deport all the illegal immigrants who have broken the law to get here. Yes, no human is illegal and all that platitude's good, but the fact of the matter is,
you broke the law when you came across the border.
We have election laws. We have immigration laws for a reason, and that's to vet and put eyeballs on every pair of feet that come across. And if we're going to let you in, you better be above the board and check the box. If you don't check one of them, sorry. Those in and of themselves probably should be made more efficient, less...
Yeah, whatever. And I mean, you and I have talked about that before. We've talked about it on the podcast. We've talked about it off the podcast.
And that's a whole different topic. But
I would venture to say that these people in Miami-Dade agree with our stance on that.
Imagine that. They want you to have to go through the same process that their ancestors did to get here.
But I'm just a racist white man.
Right. I'm Portuguese. I'm a mix of other European nationalities, ethnicities, but I'm like 37.5%. My dad was
I know you're
75.
white because you give a percentage.
Yes, exactly. And I danced to Cotton Eye Joe. But my family came through Ellis Island. I think I talked about this in the last pod.
Yeah, you talked about this on one of the pods.
The fact that right now you don't need that's the problem, that's one of the underlying problems, is the legal means and methods take too long, so there's a great demand in getting here, and the black market means and methods, just like the drug crisis. If there's a high demand for opioids and suddenly they all dry up, I'm going to go to the black market for opioids.
Thank you, Sackler family.
Thank you, Sacklers. So if there's a high demand to get into the country and the gateways are very narrow and doesn't allow for a lot of movement between them, and I don't mean the actual gates, but the means and methods that people use to legally immigrate here. If it takes too long, they're just going to pay $30,000 to get here the illegal way.
Yeah.
So let's make it easier to come in. Let's make the oversight of that process more transparent and more scrutinizing. And then let's build a tall wall with a wide gate. Let's let all the people in that want to come through the right way. Let's let them all in. Why not? We have no reason to. Let's let all the people who want to break the law wait. Because
Sorry,
if you
I'm perusing some news articles right now, and Charlie Kirk is referenced in Why Young Men Caused a Red Wave in College Towns. This is gonna continue. This is gonna continue. If the Democratic Party doesn't pivot and start targeting the undecided voter and the independent voter, this is gonna continue.
I think they don't know it, but they're already on the back pedal because they're gonna try this. It was racist white men. It was sexist white men. It was Latinos that
if you don't vote for me, you're not black.
It was blacks that don't know what's good for you. It was women that you don't know what's good for you. You voted against your own interest.
Well, Missouri got called in all of about 15 minutes. Missouri also voted. They voted for Trump. They also voted for confirmation of legalization of abortion. And the left is going, well, how can they vote for abortion but also vote for Trump? I don't know. Maybe because the vast majority of Americans aren't single-issue voters.
Yeah. And when you turn your campaign into a single-issue campaign, you automatically
on something that you
ostracize.
Can't control. And you had so much time to codify it.
And this is all obvious armchair quarterbacking, Monday morning quarterbacking, saying, gee, hindsight being 2020, why didn't they just do this? But Trump knew it.
Yep.
Because he didn't run on one thing. He said, hey, there's a lot of problems. I'm going to do my best to tackle them all. And here's my stance on this. Here's my stance on this. Here's my stance on this. Please vote for me. Kamala said, if you don't vote for me, he's going to take your abortion rights. And it's like, that'll definitely get you some votes.
I have a thread that I want to read out that's literally in line with what you just said. And it is so clear that this individual, I'm sure that they mean well. I'm not going to read their username because it has a slur in it. But their profile picture is a cartoon frog wearing a rainbow tutu. Okay. And it says, a message to straight men. If you and your wife or girlfriend don't want kids, go get a vasectomy. Because if her birth control fails, and they all fail, you'll either have kids or your girlfriend or wife is going to die having a miscarriage. Uninformed, maybe?
That's, So, I think the level of, I wouldn't say delusion, but the degree to which these single-issue voters are living in reality or not is revealed by their reaction to this. So when we see these things of these people saying, hey, you better go get snipped because your wife's going to die if she gets pregnant, it's like, that may be true for young couples who are struggling financially, unprepared to have children. But if you're going through all of the safety means and methods and prevention of pregnancy, contraceptive, the odds are extremely low.
Yep.
I've been lucky enough to not have a pregnancy scare. I don't play hanky-panky with just anybody, so I kind of minimize my chances on that. But it shows where they're at, where like if you're a person that just has meaningless casual sex all the time, then yeah, I would be afraid that my condom wouldn't be 100% effective. But if I'm monogamous and I'm only having sexual relations with my wife, who I may or may not want children with, that's a known risk. Sex makes kids. That's what it's always done, and that's why we invented contraceptive, to have the ability to say when and if we want to
We're also seeing
make
a
life.
massive, like unprecedented push of young men returning to the church.
Yeah, that's an episode in itself. There's been a
Yeah.
revival.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it
I
seems
don't I
like
don't know
a
what's causing that other than what I'm assuming is happening is a rejection of woke ideology from the young. I mean, there's a very, very loud minority that is saying this is the future, this is the way, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have to accept this, or you're
we're
just going
not
to be an
going
old
back.
bigot, right? Yeah, and I don't think it's ridiculous to not want kids to have. I actually don't like the term gender affirming care. I
I
think
actually have
that
a
is like
I have a
putting a
problem with the
marshmallow
term
on
gender.
something,
I have a problem with the term gender as a
and that's
whole,
fine.
because there's biological sex, and
Mhm.
we're taught to know that gender is different from sex.
Yeah.
Uh, the term gender was coined in the 50s by somebody named Dr. John Money,
Hmm.
uh, and he was widely ridiculed and discredited for
Yes.
experiments that he did on a set of twin boys.
Yep.
He basically, um, I don't want to get in
Did he ever
trouble
go to
with
prison
you.
for that?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube here, but this is all.
It's
I'm
pretty
just.
vulgar. I
It's on
know. I
Wikipedia.
know the story that you're talking about.
So basically, we're using the language of a not so good guy.
He had ties
Who
to a certain group, didn't he?
I'm not aware of any ties. I just know what he did,
A certain
and
European group.
interesting. But so the fact that we're even using that language is, to me,
Yeah, but I
repulsive.
also I'm gonna disagree with you there because I think gender and sex can be used interchangeably, and I think you do need to acknowledge the very small number of people that
The
that are
intersex
intersex.
population.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so
Yeah.
they're XXY, and
Right.
they can either be male or female, right? But that is a very
Niche.
small
Right.
percentage, but they're real. Like, you have to acknowledge that they're real,
Absolutely.
and I do genuinely believe that there are people that are trans, and I'm totally okay with them not going by their birth sex. I just
Yeah.
would prefer for you to make surgical choices as an adult. You
Crazy.
socially transition. Go for it.
Crazy
Actual
thought.
medical treatments, puberty blockers, top surgery, bottom surgery. I think you should probably be an adult. I think you should probably be an adult when that happens. And it's
Yeah.
wild that I am considered a bigot for having that belief. But I will stand on the rooftop and yell it to anybody who will listen that I think we should keep hands off of children. I think it is the government's obligation to protect children. I think that schools should have. I think that police departments should have more funding, and I think part of that funding should go to task forces that defend schools. Which school shootings are a uniquely American thing, but we also have the
Unfortunately.
Second Amendment, and that's not going anywhere. So I think that we solve the mental health crisis. We get more mental health services for children. I think parents need to start being parents and recognize when there's something going on with their child, because I'm sick of hearing, oh, but they're such a good kid, they would never do something like this. Yeah, I don't know if you knew this, but your kid's been getting bullied for 3 years and then snapped one day.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. I like what you said about the task forces to defend the kids.
yeah.
It kind of doesn't make any sense to me that when you go through an airport, you have
And,
to
and
take your
I said that
shoes off.
specifically because I said the government has an obligation to protect children. And I
Yes.
know that the left's response to that is, so take away guns because of school shootings. And it's like, hey, guess what? We have the right to bear arms, and that's not going anywhere.
Also, murder is illegal.
And murder is illegal.
So they're breaking
There's a
the law
thought.
in the first place, right? So why do we have armed people at airports and mandatory pat downs with X-rays? Because airlines are an expensive industry. There are a lot of lives on board, and it's sort of at this point necessary because we have a coast-to-coast nation, and in order to get from coast to coast, you can drive 3 days or you can fly 12 hours. Are our children not as valuable as the airlines? Are our children not as is our education system not as valuable as flight travel? Because
You also have to show an ID to fly.
yeah, it seems like if there were any ill will or malicious actor wanting to cause harm to a school, there seems to be little to no prevention measures in place other than yes, he was on our radar, or yes, we were aware of his digital footprint or her digital footprint.
Oh yeah, the trope that the FBI every single time that there's a mass shooting goes, he was on our radar.
Whoops, we knew about him and we were watching him for a year. But
I mean, even that I don't know if it's the most recent, but that one in Georgia where the dad went to jail. The FBI showed up at the house a few months prior and was like, "Hey, just so you know, your kid is on our radar to shoot up a school." And what's the dad's response to that? Well, I'm gonna get him a rifle. Yeah, maybe you're the worst dad of the year. Is that an award that we can hand out? You know what? I'm handing it out. Worst Dad of the Year award right there. Have fun in prison for the rest of your life. Actually, I think he's only going for 20, but, you know.
Yeah, I agree that the parents in that situation were culpable. But it's like, it's how many others would have been prevented. And I go back to Columbine, man. Like I said last episode, if it wasn't publicized, how many ideas were planted?
Yeah, but I also go back to I understand why.
It was unprecedented. Yeah.
I understand why. And I do appreciate that we're starting to not show their faces and not say their names. I know if any mass shootings or anything come up, I know that you and I have talked about this. Their names will not be uttered on this podcast. Right. We will not give them a platform. We will not have their name be read. No. We are not going to give them any molecule of fame that they are desiring. And
Netflix will give them a documentary in 2 years.
Oh yeah, I mean Netflix will do their thing. They got money to make. Yeah, I think it's a mental health epidemic. I mean, we're seeing that with... I mean, how many advertisements today have you seen? Because I know I've seen a lot for therapy and for handling election stress. Right. I'm seeing ads
prioritize your mental health, guys.
By Meta. Literally, Meta ads on Instagram and Facebook that are just, this is the number to the suicide hotline, and it's the ballot box behind a caricature. Like, hey, if you're considering offing yourself because of the results of an election, you should seek mental help.
You should have sought help.
You should have sought it a while ago. But
yesterday.
if this is the red flag that you're seeing, hey, go get help.
That's the primary difference I've noticed in the reactions. And I was thinking about this before Election Day. Like, okay, the polls are pretty much dead even.
They boarded up DC.
Yeah,
that wasn't for the right.
I don't know who's gonna win. Yeah. I didn't put money on it, but I was prepared for Kamala winning. I was like, okay, at least. Like
I'm actually surprised that there hasn't been as much downfall. I mean, maybe this weekend.
Yeah, but even now, with all the suicide hotlines and everything, to go into an election so headstrong that even the idea of the other side winning makes you think that the world's over and that you'd be better off dead. How far gone are we that that's where the political left is? Because I'm sure if Kamala won, there would have been some gripes and complaints and
absolutely,
maybe, legitimacy complaints, whatever. I'm sure.
I mean, there's legitimacy complaints from the left now.
Well, I'm sure that happens every time. But
man,
regardless of who wins, by the way,
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, life would have gone on, and millions of Americans would have woken up and gone to work, and
life is going on. And right. I think this is probably a good point to start wrapping up. But just your life's the same as it was yesterday when you woke up.
Yeah. You
Right?
have
You might be disappointed.
You have no less rights than you did yesterday.
And guess what? You're gonna have the same rights on January 20th. I will say the Democrats have the opportunity to do the funniest thing on January 6th. How funny would that be?
All they have to do now is certify the election. That's I think that's the only thing that's left. Really.
Harris has to certify the election.
Yeah.
Which Harris has already conceded, so I don't see any issue with that. She openly said there will be a peaceful transfer of power, like there's been for the entirety of this nation's existence.
Like Trump did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, everything's fine. We're fine. We're all here. Bombs didn't drop on D.C., New York, L.A. Like, everything is happening how it's going to happen. If you don't like what happened, vote differently in 4 years.
Yeah. And remember that your vote weighs more the more local you get. So call your congressman, call your local representative, and try to show some unity. This shouldn't be, delete me, unfriend me, block me if you voted this way. This should be, hey.
I mean, maybe stop talking to those people, though, if they're actually just like, I don't want to talk to you because of the way that you voted, like, maybe that's not a person that you want in your life. Also, your vote is private. You don't have to tell people who you voted for. I mean, I'm sure at this point, if you're still listening, which if you are, I greatly appreciate it. And if you liked it, if you could like and subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you liked, didn't like. I'd greatly appreciate it. But I'm sure at this point, you have a pretty good idea of who I voted for the presidency. But I doubt you could sit down and guess line for line what I voted for on everything else. Because
if you assume,
I promise you, it's not party line. And I am a registered independent.
And if you assume that everyone who voted for Trump is pro everything that Trump says and not just anti-Kamala, then you've fallen victim to the same trap that both sides have fallen to. It's like identity politics is a plague on this nation. Yep. I don't agree with the two-party system, but given that it's our current system, it may sometimes be a lesser of two evils, but to what extent you buy into that and to what extent you form your own opinions on objective reality, that's up to you.
Absolutely. And with that, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Jarrod?
I got nothing else. Thank you for tuning in, and love your neighbor.
All right. Goodbye.